Well, hi everyone. I am so excited to be here in Baton Rouge, here in Louisiana. While it is not my hometown or my home state, it is my adopted home state. I'm from Indiana, and every chance I get, I come to Louisiana. To kind of expand on that, so you all know what I mean, my dentist is in Slidell, Louisiana. I've never lived in Louisiana. But you know, I mean, every 6 months I come to Louisiana, whether I need to for business or not. I buy my sugar in Louisiana. I buy my pecans in Louisiana. I've learned to cook in Louisiana. So I'm very excited. I was very excited when Visit Baton Rouge asked me to come speak today. So thank you very much for that. Right, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about American Cruise Lines and then talk about the river cruise industry and how Baton Rouge is such a key location for all of us on the river. So first of all, we have 5 vessels that operate on the Mississippi River. That's 5 of now 18. We launched our 18th vessel last week. That's a coastal vessel. And to tell you a little bit about us, we are U.S. owned, American owned. We're actually family owned, which is a little bit unique versus any of the other operators, is that we have 3 brothers who operate the company, and they took it over from their father, and their father started it 30 years ago. So they continue his legacy with the company, and so we love the fact that we are family owned, and you can see it in everything we do in our corporate culture. We also, like I said, we have 13 other vessels that operate outside of the Mississippi River. We operate the Mississippi, Ohio, Tennessee, Cumberland, Columbia, and Snake Rivers. We also operate in Alaska and along the full eastern seaboard from Bar Harbor, Maine, all the way down, and now we are starting our first voyage, I believe in about a week and a half, that will go from Key West and go up to Tampa and do round trips there. So we're kind of around the country, but we started out on the rivers, and our primary focus is still the rivers. We are, as I said, a U.S. company. We also own our own shipyard. So we build our own ships in Maryland, and we do a lot of our work in the off-season, particularly for these Mississippi River boats. All of the off-season work is done in the state of Louisiana as well. So we focus on enrichment. We focus on things that our guest will want to see that gets them a more immersive experience. Our average age of our guest is around 70. They're well-educated, affluent, lifelong learners. They love to learn about the history and the culture of the area. And I'd like to say they like to get a taste of where they go, and we're a better state to get a literal taste of than Louisiana and the culinary aspect that you all have here. There's nothing like going to Louisiana. Nothing gets me more excited than when I come down. My dental hygienist always says, "Have you been to Kenny's Seafood yet?" Because she knows that as soon as I hit town, I'm going to get some good Cajun food or some seafood. All right, and the common goals that we have, the U.S. river cruise industry as a whole, we have seen tremendous growth over the last 10 years. And I say that because I've been fortunate to work with the 2 primary river cruise operators. I started with the founder of American Queen Voyages before he bought his first riverboat, and was with him for 12 years, and then moved over to American Cruise Lines. And I can tell you that the river cruise industry has just had an incredible impact on the communities that we visit. It was definitely seen during COVID, so they got used to seeing one boat come, then another riverboat, then another riverboat, and there were quite a few going in 2020. And when we shut down and all of the river cruise industry stopped, a lot of the communities, particularly the small communities, really see that economic impact. And so they said, "When are you all going to be able to cruise again?" And we said, "When the CDC allows us to cruise again." We were unfortunately lumped into that cruise line, even though we're very small. And so a lot of the places really saw what an economic benefit the river cruise industry has to all of the communities along the river system. So we visit large cities, small communities, Our economic impact is felt all the way along the river. We typically stop at just south of St. Paul and then come all the way down to New Orleans, spending the majority of our time on the lower Mississippi between Memphis and New Orleans. And then, like I said, we like to provide that taste of each city. And we hope that the guests return. Maybe they return with us, maybe they return by air, maybe they come in, maybe they drive in. But when they get that little bit of taste of Baton Rouge, we know they're going to probably fly back into Baton Rouge, stay in hotels, stay in the area, maybe take some trips along the river, driving it as well. So we hope that we give them a taste and we hope they come back to visit. So one thing about the river cruise industry as a whole is we're very community focused. And we like to provide authentic experiences. I don't like the word attraction, that's Disney World. We like these authentic, immersive experiences that really tell a story of a community. We like to tell the history, the culture. One thing that you'll find is the guests love to talk to local residents. They love to know what it's like to live in your community. They love to walk the streets and walk around Baton Rouge, walk into a store and talk to the store owner. And then we, as a company, like to support local businesses and organizations. So you'll find that when we come into a community, we don't just bring guests in, and we don't have, our excursion director isn't the person that gets on the motor coach and goes around and tells guests what they're seeing. We hire local guides, and those local guides tell the story. They tell their story. They tell the story of Baton Rouge. They tell the story of Louisiana. And it's very important to us that the guests learn it firsthand from y'all. They're not learning it from a script. And then we support local businesses. As a family-owned company, we realize how important it is to provide guests and to provide visitors to all of your businesses. And so we try to focus on that. We try to bring guests in. Of course, they want to go to, there's certain key places that you're going to take them. You're going to take them to the U.S. as kid. There's so much rich culture and history here that we want to make sure we touch on, but we want to support those local businesses as well. And then when we visit the area here, as Claude was saying, low water this year and the previous year did mean that there's a lot of times we can't go maybe into some of the docks that we would normally go into and some of these landings. We typically land at boat ramps. This is still old style cruising at its best here. So we pull up to a boat ramp and that's where we dock. Unfortunately with this low water, as he said, St. Francisville, I was up yesterday in St. Francisville, and our landing, from the landing to the river, is covered with willows and grass. And it's about 200 feet out. So that means we have to find an alternate, and that may be Louisiana, that may be here in Baton Rouge. And then we spend a day visiting Baton Rouge, and we still have to take the guests up to St. Francisville because that's what they were expecting to see as well. So they want to see both locations. So Baton Rouge is very important in the location because a lot of the communities that all of the river cruise industry visit, they are maybe 30, 45-minute drive from Baton Rouge. So when we can't get into other places, hopefully we can still get into Baton Rouge. So I don't need to tell y'all how unique Baton Rouge is, but I want to point out a few key things for us. It's capital city. When you think about the capital cities on the Mississippi River, there's not that many. So this is really the only capital city we dock at. We do go to St. Paul. We fly guests into the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, but we're actually docked about an hour south. So this is their opportunity on the Mississippi River to visit a capital city. It's also so heavy on history and culture here. I can't think of a state that has a stronger history and culture that is still prominent today as Louisiana. And the strong partnership that we have with Visit Baton Rouge here has been key to our success in Baton Rouge. We feel like we have a partner here. We feel like we can call and visit Baton Rouge at any time, and I've done that many times in the past. I've made phone calls at night when I was the Director of Port Operations for American Clean Voyages. I would pick up the phone and call and say, help, we need something, and never one time did my call not be answered. So that partnership is key to us and the rest of the river cruise industry. And then this is the last deep water port on the river. So that means you won't see the large cargo ships go above Baton Rouge. That means for the river cruise industry, when we start looking at these low water events, they occur north of Baton Rouge. South of Baton Rouge, it's dredged deep. It's for these large ships. The captain sitting over here could tell you that, I'm sure. So Baton Rouge is one of the locations that typically we know we're going to be able to get to from New Orleans. We're always going to be able to get through this area. And then what's required for the riverboats? A lot of people say, well, what do you all need to keep coming to Baton Rouge? So dockings and landings that are suitable for mature guests. Average age 70, that's the average. We may have some that are 94. We may have some that are very active. We may have marathon runners, and we may have people that are in wheelchairs or walkers. And so we need to be able to accommodate all of those people. Something that's structurally sound. So if it's not that boat ramp like you would put into your bass boat or something out, then we need a structure, and we need it to be sound all the time. Dredged is needed, and a safe area for all guests and crew. Because a lot of times when we're in Baton Rouge, as well as the other river cruise lines, we may come in late at night and stay overnight, and then the guest experience is the following day. We also like for it to be an easy, short access to the motor coaches. So the motor coaches travel with us, and so they go the whole route with us. So when we depart a port, the motor coaches depart. Of course, they always beat us because we're a little slower than the motor coaches are. And the motor coaches meet us the next day. So they travel with us the entire length of the voyage. Guests always know the drivers get to know the guest names. So it keeps it a very personal experience. And we like for it to have close proximity to town, which you all have here. The guests, they can get off. If we get in at 10 o'clock at night and they're not ready to go to bed, they can walk into town and they can find something to do as well. And then aesthetically pleasing. We want it to be something that's welcoming. When they get off of the boat, we want them to say, oh, this is really nice. I want to get off, stretch my legs, walk the levee. So you do see a lot of people doing that. And then the other thing is, as the river cruise industry has continued to grow, right now you have 8 vessels that operate on the Mississippi River. We have 5 of those. And then there's 3 others. And as we grow, we need places to go. And so we have to kind of spread ourselves out, and you'd like to think that we all work really well together and say, oh, I'm going to be here on this day, and you're going to be here on this day, and someone else is here the next day. It doesn't work that way. Y'all know how competition is. But one of the things is we put our schedules out 2 years in advance. So when we have our schedule set, and we have people who've purchased cruises, and we've purchased their airfare for them and everything else, those dates are pretty set. And we can't move the cities around, so sometimes we're vying for space. So as anyone here, as you start to think about your city plan, anytime there's ever an opportunity for an additional location, please keep the river cruise industry in mind. And we also all like to have a seat at that design table to talk about what it is. I think a lot of times people think, oh, we need to put in this massive dock and we need to spend all this money for infrastructure, and go back to the boat ramp idea. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It doesn't have to be a structure that's put out into the river. That collects debris, honestly. Something simple, keep it simple is always the best. So that's a little bit about the river cruise industry, what we do. Like I say, we love all of the cultural and historical experiences here. One of the things I was speaking with someone this morning, and we were talking about the state of Louisiana and the city of Baton Rouge. And one of the things that I find here that I don't find anywhere else, and I travel to all of our states that we visit, all of our communities, we have over 100 ports, and I can tell you that the thing you all have here that isn't anywhere else is a strong sense of family. And that projects onto our guests as well. The person I was talking to this morning, I said, even where I live, you don't see families get together on Sundays. The other thing is in Louisiana and this general area, people will say, oh, this is my uncle such and such, and my aunt such and such, and Uncle Joe, and I'm like, oh, and so is it your dad's sister or brother or your mom's sister? Oh, neither. We don't know how they're our aunt and uncle, but we just know we've called them aunt and uncle our whole life. You don't find that anywhere else. And I can tell you that from a visitor perspective, there is something special about that. And when we bring guests in, all of y'all and all of the business owners really project that sense of family onto our guest. And they leave here feeling like they've had an amazing experience. They leave feeling like Louisiana is their second home. So thank you all so much. I appreciate Visit Baton Rouge inviting me. I appreciate Rotary allowing me to speak today. And I'll take any questions you may have. Yes?
If I get on at St. Paul and I come all the way down the river, what does that cost?
So the question was, if she gets on in St. Paul and comes all the way down to New Orleans, what does that cost? Well, I'm glad y'all sitting down. It's depending on the vessel, depending on your stateroom, it's probably going to run around $25,000 per person. Yeah. So you can get a new car, or you can take a vacation. How long? So the question was, how long is that trip? So if you want to go from St. Paul to New Orleans, it's going to be about 2 weeks. If you want to go Memphis to New Orleans, it's going to be 7 days. Most cruises are 7 days, but those Mighty Mississippi, those long ones, typically run 2 to 3 weeks. Yes?
You mentioned docks. The picture had it at the big dock. I had some relatives come down on a trip, and they stayed, or they got off at one of the marine landings.
Correct. So the question is about the docks, and the picture was of City Dock, known as the Paperclip Dock. So there's a few reasons that we typically now dock at Shamrock Marine, which is between the bridge and the casino. And that came about for a couple of reasons. One was during low water. The Paperclip Dock was too shallow, and the design of it, the way that it was constructed, the boats were all going underneath. They were sliding under and punching some windows out of some of the vessels. And so because of that, the decision was made that a more, I'll say, consistent location was over at Shamrock. And then also, accessibility-wise, they don't have to cross the railroad track if you're at Shamrock, because the motor coaches cross the track and the guests pedestrian-wise don't have to cross the track. So safety-wise, that makes it a little bit easier to do. And then the other thing is spreading these river boats out. So one cruise line works with one of the casinos north. One cruise line primarily uses the Paperclip Dock, and then we use the Shamrock Dock. And so kind of spreads us out a little bit as well.
So with those three available, your earlier comment said maybe we need another dock?
So there's times that a particular line may have 2 boats docked at the same time. If one dock is not accessible, you may need an additional one just to support the 3 companies at the same time. And, you know, I will say that any dock over time needs improvement. Any dock over time needs maintenance done. So when that happens, you also want to have a backup. Yes, sir.
What is the typical passenger experience in Baton Rouge when you're docked here?
So what is the typical experience in Baton Rouge when we're docked here? So we have several different things. We go to the Rural Life Museum. That's always very popular here. We go to Capitol Park, US Kid. I'm doing these off the top of my head. We do a city exploration that takes them around and they get to see different areas. And then we go to the Art and Science Museum. And then there's a few others that we do from the area here. Yes, ma'am.
What would you do to improve the visitor experience in Baton Rouge?
What would we do to improve the visitor experience? I think one of the things that we find is if we dock on a Saturday, on a weekend, and this isn't anything y'all can, I don't know how you do anything about it, but there's a lot of festivals, events, marathons, a lot of things that close the roads right around the downtown area where the boats have access, where the motor coaches have to go to get the guests. So I think maybe when thinking about what roads are going to be closed for events, maybe if they just let the river cruise companies know that, and see if maybe there's just an alternate where even if just a motor coach can get in, turn around somewhere and get out, I think that would be helpful. Always, this is a case from Bemidji, well, we don't go all the way to Bemidji, but if we did, from Bemidji to New Orleans, there's one thing that is common everywhere. Sundays and Mondays, businesses are closed. Here, being a capital city, a government community, Saturdays and Sundays, there's a lot of things that may be closed, but Sundays are really hard. And Mondays now, since COVID, a lot of people have decided, oh, we don't need to be open all of those days, so we're going to be closed on Sundays and Mondays. Some even close Sunday, Mondays, Tuesdays now. Well, the river cruise industry, we still have to operate 365 days a year. Well, not 365, we take a layup, but when we're operating, we do it on a somewhat staggered schedule, and we're going to be in communities on Sundays and Mondays. There's no way around it. And so having locations open more often or longer hours is very helpful for all of us in the river cruise industry. So even if that's something that's coordinated, some locations will coordinate based on our visits. And so they will say, the river boats are going to be in on Saturday, Sunday, but they're not in on Tuesday, Wednesday. So a store owner may say, you know, we're going to close on Tuesday, but we'll be open on Sunday and Monday. So I think those are some of the big things. Yes, sir.
With Bell moving on land, is that going to open an opportunity for that dock to be used?
So the question was, with the Bell of Baton Rouge moving land side, will that open something up? And yes, that is a potential to work there and to utilize that structure. It does need a little bit of work. The structure itself probably needs a little bit of work, but it is an option to be able to use for the river cruise industry. Yes, sir.
Would you consider Baton Rouge a destination for music? And if not, what would you like to see us do?
Okay, so the question was, is Baton Rouge a destination for music? And I will answer that Louisiana is a destination for music. So in general, the state has a very strong music background. I think if you have something, I will tell you there's one community up north, Now keep in mind that the northern section of the Mississippi River we don't visit as often. It's not accessible a large part of the year. So we're not there as much. But they do have music playing. There's a band that plays every time a riverboat is in. Even if it's someone that, it could be someone local playing a saxophone. We could have some jazz. We could have zydeco. We could have different styles of music. And it could just be one or two people who maybe volunteer to come down and play. I think that makes a big difference. It's a very welcoming thing. Everyone loves music, so I think that's good. Also, if you have anything, a jazz club, a blues club, anything like that, even if it's not something that is on our list of provided experiences that we do, one thing that we do as a company is we have a port information sheet. And that sheet gives guests a little bit more information. Maybe it's not an experience that we provide, but it's something that they can do. And an example of things that are on the port information sheet, there will be hospitals, library, post office, pharmacy, taxi service, and then there'll be a list of maybe 3 restaurants, bars, ice cream parlors, some experiences that maybe we don't offer, and then also we could put a jazz club and have a schedule or something like that. We also on that port information sheet have a QR code that the guest can scan the night before. They get this the night before they come in. They can scan that QR code and it would go to a Visit Baton Rouge website. And then whatever is listed on there, they can see. We have a community that has a special landing page for American Cruise Lines. So when the guests scan the QR code, it goes to their destination marketing organization. It goes to their website, but it goes to a special landing page just for them. And that's where you could highlight a special jazz performance. You could highlight different things that are going on. They have bounce backs for hotels. So different things, different discounts specifically designed just for our guests. Yes, sir.
How many guests can it hold? We both hold.
So our boat's capacity is 175 to 185 per vessel. And so that's about the number of people that you have coming in. Of course, some people choose to stay aboard. You may have 150 come in town, 160, depending on what the occupancy is. Also keep in mind that 175, anytime any of us in the river cruise industry are talking about our capacity, it's the capacity that's probably listed on our COI from the Coast Guard. A full boat is usually not full occupancy, and that's because some guests travel alone. So a cabin that may have a double bed will maybe only have one person in it. So even if we're sold out, could be less than 175, 185. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Shelly. Could you note to go off of that question about how many guests you've brought to Baton Rouge in 2023 so far?
So I can tell you what we have scheduled for 2023 because I had our team look it up right before I came up here. And it's just over 12,000 guests this year. All right. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What are the most popular stops along the whole river?
What are the most popular stops along the river? Okay, I'm all about being honest here, so I'm just going to tell y'all. I would say popularity, Hannibal, Missouri, and that's because of Mark Twain. So there's reasons for these. So Hannibal's very popular. Natchez is popular. Really depends on what their primary focus is, but those are the two that kind of stand out to me as being popular destinations. All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you ever have any local Louisiana musicians do residencies on the ships?
So the question is, do we have local people from Louisiana doing musical residency on the ships? We do what we have step-on entertainers. So we will have entertainers locally along the river who come on and perform in the evening. And so, yes, throughout their voyage, at some point here on the lower Mississippi, most likely we do have local people come aboard. They usually come aboard one evening, they come aboard, they perform, and they go back landside. All right, well, thank you all so much for your time.